why Auschwitz is in Poland is wrong, why El Salvador is a distraction, and why that matters to all of us. Some people claim that El Salvador is being used to move people outside of US jurisdiction, just like Nazi Germany sent people to Auschwitz and Poland. But that comparison is historically wrong, and it will matter to you. You need to know back then Germany occupied Poland. Auschwitz fell under German jurisdiction because it was part of German-controlled territory at the time. Auschwitz was close to the German mainland and part of the so-called Greater German Reich. It was under direct German rule, and it was treated as such. As I've said time and time again, fascists don't care about the jurisdiction as you know it. They don't care about laws as you know them. They don't care about rights as you know them. You might think that Auschwitz was out of reach, but the distance from Berlin to Auschwitz was less than the distance from Washington, D.C. to Columbus, Ohio. The Nazis transported people within their empire, not outside of it. And that's exactly what makes the situation in the US states far more alarming. El Salvador is a distraction, nothing more than a spectacle to grab your attention, because there is no way that millions of people are deported there. El Salvador is from a logistical and financial perspective a nightmare, according to Senator Van Hollen, who personally visited the site, which I applaud him for. Trump paid $15 million to detain 238 migrants in El Salvador. That means the US spent an absurd amount of money just to remove a few hundred people. Now imagine trying to deport 14 million migrants, as Trump claimed he would. The estimated cost? $882 billion, and that's just for holding them in El Salvador. That doesn't even include the cost of US law enforcement, domestic incarceration, or transportation. Usually, prisons offset some of the cost through forced labor, but the secret, for example in El Salvador, the mega prison, the prisoners never leave the building, according to the director of the prison. There's no productivity, no financial gain at all. And let me add one thing. Whoever designed the secret clearly took inspiration from Auschwitz. By now, you might have realized something doesn't add up, unless El Salvador was never the goal to begin with. Because when have the rich and powerful ever willingly shown us their crimes or plans? They hide them. They deny them. But this, El Salvador, it's propaganda. It's distraction like the migrant caravans back then, a performance built to draw your eyes away from the real plan. Mainland USA. It was always about the USA mainland. Let's put together the pieces together by starting to listening to this.
Where does our whole country go to get repaid for all of the wealth, all of the prosperity and security that has been stolen from us by decades of uncontrolled illegal mass migration? Because we all deserve reparations for what has been stolen from.
The current playbook is rising hate towards migrants, the narrative that migrants are robbing America, high tariffs to force companies to bring production back to the USA, high cost of domestic labor, attacks on the courts and legal system, private prison contracts, military presence at the border, and the propaganda show which took place in El Salvador. Now ask yourself, if you connect the dots, where do you end up? Cheap labor. Cheap labor. Trump will force imprisoned migrants to work for free in the US states, like the Nazis did back in Germany, in mainland Germany. And here's the terrifying loophole in the USA, which he will misuse. It's called the 13th Amendment. The 13th Amendment of the Constitution prohibits slavery and involuntary servitude except as punishment for a crime. This exception has historically been exploited, particularly in the context of prison labor. And if you control the legal system, crime can mean anything you want. If you would connect the dots of this economic and political agenda, disimport the courts and big law, declare migrants as the biggest threat, incarcerate migrants without due process, enrich private prison owners, supply companies with forced cheap labor, tell your supporters and critics that the migrants stay to pay off their debt, and expand the system to homegrowns later if the opposition threatens your power. The USA isn't there yet, but it would explain everything that happened till now. You also need to know how fascists operate. They rewrite the laws to make everything look legal. Trump's team is already working on reshaping the legal system and even targeting the Supreme Court. Don't forget that in Nazi Germany, countless legal professionals helped to create a legal facade to cover the regime's crimes. In the USA, Trump might claim, "I tried everything, I couldn't deport them, so they will serve their time here." And they will work. And the legal system will be reshaped to calm the public and to protect them. I also think that the military at the southern border is not just for people who want to come from Mexico to the USA, but it will also be for those who want to flee the USA in the future to come. That might also be the reason why Trump wants to have an influence on Canada. Otherwise, all the migrants and liberals might flee to Canada, like many scholars already did. If I'm right, we will soon see prisons being built next to factories owned by Trump's allies. And that's the real danger. Not El Salvador, not the border spectacle. The real threat is what you don't see coming. And it's right there, in your backyard.